The Draconian fleet, a vast armada from beyond the known star systems, approached Earth with silent menace. Their ships, angular and ominous, cut through the void of space, heading towards the blue planet renowned among the stars for its lethal environments and rugged inhabitants. In a secured conference room in Washington, D.C., a group of military leaders and government officials watched the advancing fleet on live feeds from orbital satellites. The atmosphere was tense. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on everyone present. Captain Daniel Dan Carter stood at the back of the room, arms folded, his gaze fixed on the screen. A retired military officer turned space strategist, Dan had been recalled for his expertise in extraterrestrial warfare strategies. General Adams, leading the briefing, addressed the room. As of 0600 hours, the Draconian fleet made their approach into Earth's orbit. Communications have been silent, but their intentions are clear from their formations. We must assume their objectives are hostile. Dan stepped forward, clearing his throat to draw attention. General, if I may, he interjected, the room's eyes pivoting towards him. The Draconians are known for their reliance on superior technology and firepower. Traditional combat strategies won't work against them. We need to think differently. Beside him, Dr. Alex Jensen, a specialist in alien technology, nodded in agreement. Dan's right. Their technology could be vulnerable to our environment. Earth's unique magnetic fields and atmospheric conditions have caused issues for other species in the past. It might just give us the edge we need. Admiral Harris, a grizzled veteran of space conflicts, scoffed at the suggestion. You're suggesting we sit back and hope the weather takes them out? That's not a strategy, that's wishful thinking. Dan faced the Admiral squarely. Not just the weather, Admiral. We can enhance those environmental effects. We can turn Earth itself into a weapon, if necessary. Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Hahn, another key member of Dan's former team, joined in. I've seen firsthand how Dan's unconventional tactics can turn the tide of battle. If there's anyone who can find a way to use the planet against them, it's him. General Adams considered the faces around him, the mix of skepticism and belief. All right, Dan, Dr. Jensen, you're with me. Let's figure out a plan that incorporates these natural defenses. Everyone else, prepare your units according to standard invasion protocols. As the room buzzed into action, Dan, Alex, and Michelle moved to a side table littered with maps and digital displays. They pored over data, looking for any geographic or atmospheric anomalies that could be weaponized against the alien invaders. Alex pointed at a series of overlays on the digital map. Look here, the ionosphere over these regions is unusually active. If we could lure their fleet into orbit above these areas, it might disrupt their systems, cause malfunctions, maybe even total system failures. Michelle was quick to add, and if their ships go down, they'll be dealing with Earth's wildlife and terrain, not just our military. The Amazon, the Sahara, the Siberian tundra, they won't stand a chance on the ground. Dan nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. We'll need precise timing and coordination. It's risky, but it might just work. As they strategized, the screens continued to display the silent, ominous approach of the Draconian fleet. Earth's fate hung in the balance, but Dan and his team were not ready to give up. They were determined to use every resource at their disposal, every secret weapon Earth could offer. The battle for Earth's future was just beginning. Dan's plan was simple yet daring. Infiltrate the crash site of the lead Draconian ship, determine the extent of the damage, and gather any intelligence on their operational capabilities post-crash. For the mission, he assembled a select team of experts, each with skills critical to navigating and surviving the hostile Amazon terrain where the ship had gone down. Under the cloak of darkness, Dan led his team through the dense underbrush of the Amazon. The sounds of nocturnal life created a cacophony around them, yet the group moved silently, communicated with hand signals and short, whispered commands. With him were Alex Jensen, now in charge of analyzing any retrieved alien tech, Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Hahn, an expert in guerrilla warfare, and Sergeant Mark Ridley, a survival specialist with experience in South American jungles. Keep your eyes peeled, Mark whispered, leading the way with a night vision scope. This isn't just about reaching the site. We're not alone in these woods, and I'm not just talking about the wildlife. As they approached the coordinates, the twisted wreckage of the Draconian ship loomed through the trees. It was larger than any aircraft known to humanity, its hull scarred and partially consumed by the aggressive flora of the rainforest. The site was eerily quiet, too quiet for comfort. Michelle, scanning the perimeter, gestured towards a series of deep indentations in the mud. Tracks. Draconians are definitely alive. Looks like some of them got out before the crash got bad. Dan nodded, signaling everyone to fan out and approach with increased caution. As they moved closer, Alex's handheld scanner started to beep intermittently. I'm picking up energy readings. It's faint, but it's definitely Draconian tech still operational inside. They reached the ship's breached hull, the metal twisted and torn open by the impact. Dan peered inside, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The interior was a chaos of shattered components and the unmistakable signs of a hurried evacuation. Let's gather what we can and get out fast. We don't want to be here when they come back, Dan instructed, keeping his voice low. Inside, they split up, each member searching through different sections of the alien vessel. Mark kept watch at the entrance, his rifle at the ready. The humidity and the stench of burnt electronics made the air inside the ship almost unbearable. Suddenly, Alex called out from a dimly lit corridor. Dan, you need to see this. His voice was tense with urgency. Dan hurried over, finding Alex standing over a control panel, its screens flickering erratically. Alex pointed at the alien script running across the display. I've seen this before in the data we captured from their communications. It's a distress signal. They've called for backup. The gravity of the situation set in quickly. Can you disable it? Dan asked. Alex's fingers flew over the alien interface, adapted from the tech they had previously recovered. I think so. Give me a minute. Meanwhile, Michelle returned from the far end of the ship, dragging a heavy object covered in alien fabric. Found something that might be useful, she said, dropping what appeared to be a Draconian weapon next to Dan. As Alex worked on the panel, a loud crash echoed from the forest outside, followed by the rapid, heavy thuds of approaching footsteps. They're back, Mark hissed, peering out into the darkness. Dan drew his weapon, positioning himself by the ship's entrance. Positions now. We hold them off as long as we can. Alex's hands didn't stop moving even as the sound of the Draconians grew louder. Almost there. Got it. The signal's off. But it was too late. A group of Draconians burst into the clearing, their scales reflecting the moonlight, weapons drawn and aimed at the human intruders. Dan fired the first shot, and chaos erupted as a fierce confrontation began. The firefight in the dense jungle was brutal and swift. Dan and his team managed to fend off the initial wave of Draconian attackers, leveraging the thick underbrush and their superior knowledge of guerrilla tactics. The encounter was a clear reminder of the invaders' resilience and their lethal intent. Once the immediate threat was neutralized, Dan called for a quick withdrawal back to their makeshift base camp, deep in the heart of the Amazon. As dawn broke, the sounds of the nocturnal predators gave way to the morning calls of birds, a stark contrast to the night's deadly silence. Back at camp, while Michelle and Mark checked their gear and treated minor injuries, Dan and Alex huddled over the alien weapon and the disabled communication device they had retrieved. Alex was deep in analysis, his equipment spread around him on a small portable table. This is far beyond anything we've encountered before, Alex noted, his voice filled with a mix of awe and concern. Their technology integrates with the natural environment, almost like it's meant to harness the planet's own energy. Dan, cleaning his rifle, paused to consider this. Are you saying the ship was using Earth's resources against us? Possibly. And if we can figure out how, we might be able to turn that against them. There's something about Earth that they didn't anticipate, something that's affecting their tech in unexpected ways. Michelle joined them, overhearing the last part. So, Earth itself could be a weapon? How do we use that? That's what we need to find out, Dan replied. Our planet has a history of repelling invaders, from viruses to species. Maybe it's not just the wildlife or the diseases here. Maybe Earth itself is actively hostile to alien tech. The team spent the day digging deeper into the alien technology, while also keeping a wary eye on the jungle around them. As Alex decoded more data from the device, he stumbled upon references to Earth in the Draconian databases, files filled with cautions and notes on the hostile nature of the planet. It looks like Earth is known in the Draconian archives as a cleansing zone, Alex explained. They've tried to land here before centuries ago, and it didn't go well. There's mention of a Gaia protocol, some kind of natural defense system that the planet enacts. Intrigued by this discovery, Dan proposed a new plan. If Earth has natural defenses against alien technology, there might be places where this effect is stronger. Sacred sites, ley lines, areas where magnetic fields are unusual. Michelle, ever the tactician, mapped out potential hotspots that could be used to their advantage. Places like Stonehenge, the Pyramids of Giza, and Easter Island. They're not just historical landmarks. They might be part of Earth's defense mechanism. The team decided to split up to investigate these sites. Dan and Alex prepared to travel to Stonehenge, while Michelle and Mark would head to Giza. Their goal was to gather data on any anomalies and figure out how to enhance Earth's natural protective measures. As they packed their gear for the journey, Dan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The idea that Earth was not just a battleground, but an ally in their fight against the Draconians gave them more than just a fighting chance. It provided a strategic advantage. The secrets of the planet were slowly unfolding, and with each revelation, the path to victory became clearer. As the team set off on their separate missions, the world around them seemed to pulse with hidden energy, as if the very soil and stones of Earth were awakening to join the battle. The fight for Earth's future was just beginning, and humanity was about to tap into the oldest ally they had, the planet itself. The journey to Stonehenge was fraught with challenges. Dan and Alex navigated their way through a series of covert travel routes, avoiding major cities and known Draconian surveillance points. Their goal was clear, but the path was perilous, especially with the increasing number of Draconian patrols scanning the area for human resistance. Upon arrival at Stonehenge, the duo immediately sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The ancient stones radiated a subtle but palpable energy, which Alex's instruments detected as a fluctuation in the Earth's electromagnetic field. "There's definitely something here," Alex murmured, setting up his equipment among the stones. "These readings are off the charts." Meanwhile, Michelle and Mark faced their own set of dangers en route to the Pyramids of Giza. They had to maneuver through chaotic zones where Draconian forces clashed with scattered groups of human fighters. Upon reaching the pyramids, they found that the area was surprisingly clear of alien forces, suggesting the Draconians might be wary of the site, or perhaps unaware of its significance. Back at Stonehenge, as Dan and Alex conducted their experiments, they were suddenly ambushed by a small Draconian squad. The battle was intense, and in the midst of the conflict, a figure emerged from the shadows, a Draconian commander, gravely injured and apparently left behind by his own troops. Seeing an opportunity, Dan ceased fire and approached the commander, signaling Alex to do the same. The alien, recognizing his precarious situation, hesitated, but then lowered his weapon. "I am Commander Yarek of the Draconian fleet," he declared, his voice raspy with pain. "You have bested my unit. I request parley under the laws of war." Dan eyed the commander warily but saw a valuable opportunity for negotiation and intelligence gathering. "Talk," he demanded. "Why is Earth so important to your people? What are you afraid of here?" Yarek looked around the ancient site, his expression one of mixed fear and respect. "Earth is known among the stars as the cleansing zone. Your planet destroys foreign technology. It purges what is not from here. We underestimated this Gaia protocol, as your data names it." Alex, intrigued, quickly set up a recording device. "How can we enhance this effect? Is there a way to protect our planet using its own defenses?" Garrick coughed, the effort evident. "My knowledge is limited, but I know that your planet's magnetic field and certain sites of power, like this one, are key. Our scientists believed these places could be harnessed, amplified to disrupt our operations globally." Dan considered this information carefully. The risk of trusting a Draconian was high, but the potential rewards could be game-changing. "Help us, and we ensure your survival," he offered. "Refuse, and you're on your own." Jarek, seeing no other viable option, agreed. "I will provide you with all the knowledge I have. But know this, human, my fleet will not stop coming. They will send others." With Yarek's tentative cooperation, Dan and Alex set to work, using the commander's insights to devise a plan that would utilize Earth's magnetic fields and historical sites to create a global defense network. Their mission was becoming clearer: activate Earth's latent defenses and turn the planet into a fortress against the invading Draconian forces. As the sun set over Stonehenge, Dan stood among the ancient stones, now not just symbols of human heritage, but beacons of Earth's hidden strength. The battle ahead was daunting, but with each piece of the puzzle that fell into place, humanity's resolve hardened. Earth was awakening, and with it, a new hope for mankind's survival. With Commander Yarek's reluctant assistance, Dan and Alex began their experimental work at Stonehenge. Their aim was to harness and amplify the site's natural energy to disrupt Draconian technology on a larger scale. Jarek, bound by his situation and the faint hope for his own survival, provided detailed technical insights into the workings of Draconian equipment and how it might be affected by Earth's unique properties. Meanwhile, at the pyramids of Giza, Michelle and Mark worked to replicate the experiments, setting up similar equipment to test the area's effects on the alien tech they had captured. The pyramids, steeped in history and mystery, seemed to resonate with a power that was both ancient and potent. As Dan and Alex adjusted the settings on a device designed to emit a concentrated electromagnetic pulse, Yarek watched closely, his expression a mix of fascination and concern. "Your planet's geomagnetic anomalies are much stronger than we ever recorded from orbit," he remarked. "If you succeed in amplifying these fields, you could render all our technology useless." "That's the plan," Dan replied, checking the readings on Alex's laptop. The data was promising. The electromagnetic fluctuations were increasing in intensity and scope. Back in Giza, Michelle radioed in with an update. "We're seeing similar effects here. The equipment is responding to the pyramid's alignment with the geomagnetic fields. We're ready to move to the next phase." Dan nodded to Alex, who began the sequence to integrate their modified device with Stonehenge's natural energies. The air around them seemed to vibrate with an unseen force, and the ground hummed softly under their feet. As the device reached its operational threshold, a visible arc of energy pulsed from the stones, creating a shimmering barrier that extended outward, warping the air with its power. Yarek recoiled slightly, his eyes wide. This is beyond what we imagined possible. Your planet is alive, defending itself." Dan watched the energy field stabilize, feeling a mix of triumph and awe. "Let's see how far we can push this. Alex, increase the output. Let's expand the range." As Alex adjusted the controls, the energy field expanded, stretching out towards the horizon. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Distant reports came in of Draconian technology failing, ships crashing, and alien communications networks going dark. Simultaneously, Michelle reported a successful activation at Giza. "The energy field is active here too. It's massive. We're seeing effects as far away as Cairo. Draconian gear is just shutting down." With 2 major power sites activated, Dan initiated a coordinated plan to connect other historical and geomagnetic hotspots around the world, using the network of global resistance movements to set up additional devices. Each site added to the network amplified the global defense grid, creating a cascading effect that weakened the alien invaders progressively. Yarek, observing the unfolding disaster for his fleet, seemed resigned. "You have turned your planet into a fortress," he said quietly. "We have no place here, no hope against such power." Dan, his gaze fixed on the horizon where a Draconian ship was slowly descending, crippled by the invisible forces unleashed by Earth itself, felt a surge of strategic satisfaction mixed with caution. "This is just the beginning, Yarek. Help us understand more, and we can end this invasion without more bloodshed." As the day turned into night, the activated sites around the world formed a global network of pulsing energy. Earth had indeed become a fortress, not just of stone and soil, but of living, dynamic power, safeguarding its inhabitants against those who sought to conquer it. The global defense network, powered by Earth's natural energies and historical sites, had been a success far beyond Dan's initial hopes. Across the world, Draconian ships were falling from the sky, disabled by the potent geomagnetic pulses emanating from Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, and other activated sites. The tide of battle was turning, but Dan knew the Draconians would not retreat so easily. A final confrontation was inevitable. As reports of Draconian ground forces regrouping for a counterattack flooded in, Dan gathered his team for a briefing at their temporary command center, set up in a secure underground bunker. The walls were lined with monitors displaying maps and live feeds from various hotspots around the globe. "Listen up," Dan started, his voice steady despite the fatigue etched on his face. "The Draconians are down but not out. They're preparing for a ground assault, likely a last-ditch effort to disable our network. We need to defend these sites at all costs." Michelle, reviewing the satellite images, pointed out the key locations. "Their main force is converging towards Stonehenge. It's our strongest emission point. They must think that taking it down will cripple the network." Alex chimed in, adjusting his glasses as he looked up from his laptop. "The energy fields have been effective, but they're not permanent barriers. If the Draconians manage to physically destroy the equipment, it could disrupt the entire network." Dan nodded, turning to Mark and the rest of the team. "We'll split into 2 units. Michelle, you take half the team and fortify Stonehenge. Use everything you've got. mines, drones, whatever it takes. I'll lead the other half to reinforce the secondary sites and keep the network running." The team quickly mobilized, heading out to their respective assignments with grim determination. As they departed, Dan pulled Yarek aside. "You're with me," he said. "Your knowledge of Draconian tactics could be the edge we need." Jarek, understanding his precarious position as both a captive and a collaborator, simply nodded. "I will help you, but remember, the Draconians will fight with everything they have left." At Stonehenge, Michelle and her team set up defensive perimeters around the site. Drones hovered in the air, scanning for incoming threats, while ground troops prepared for combat. The sky grew dark with the approach of Draconian dropships, their outlines stark against the twilight. The battle commenced with the harsh whine of Draconian plasma fire cutting through the evening air. Michelle coordinated her forces expertly, repelling wave after wave of attackers. Explosions lit up the night, each blast a testament to the ferocity of the defense. Meanwhile, Dan, with Jarek and the rest of the team, moved between the secondary sites, adjusting settings and reinforcing defenses. At each location, they encountered skirmishes with Draconian forces desperate to reach the equipment. In a particularly fierce battle near the Easter Island statues, Dan found himself pinned down by enemy fire. Yarek, surprisingly, came to his aid, using his understanding of Draconian weaponry to disable the attackers. "Seems you're picking a side, finally," Dan remarked, as they took cover behind a fallen Moai statue. "It is the only logical choice," Yarek responded, his voice grim. "Survival is preferable to extinction." The night wore on, filled with the sounds of battle. As dawn approached, a weary but resolute message came through from Michelle. "Stonehenge is secure. They're retreating." Exhausted but victorious, Dan's team regrouped. The Draconian forces, realizing the futility of their efforts against Earth's newly awakened defenses, began a full retreat. The last of the alien ships lifted off, disappearing into the early morning sky. The team gathered around Dan, battered and bruised, but alive. "We did it," he said, looking around at the faces of his team members. "Earth is safe, for now." As they watched the sunrise, the weight of their victory settled in. They had defended their planet, using its own ancient power as a shield. But the war had changed them all, and the world they were fighting for would never be the same again. In the wake of the Draconian retreat, the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. Earth had been tested to its limits, but through ingenuity and unity, humanity had emerged victorious. The once imminent threat of conquest and enslavement was over, but the victory was not without its costs or deeper implications. Dan convened a debriefing session at the international headquarters set up in Geneva, where representatives from various nations gathered to discuss the aftermath and the future. The room buzzed with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration as they awaited Dan's report. "As you all know, our planet was targeted for its resources and strategic position," Dan began, standing at the podium, his voice resonant but weary. "Thanks to our collective efforts and the unique defenses of Earth itself, we were able to repel the Draconian forces." He clicked a remote, and images of the key battle sites appeared behind him. Stonehenge, Giza, Easter Island, these weren't just symbols of our past, they became beacons of our survival. But there's more to it. Alex took over, stepping up with a series of graphs and data projections. "During our operations, we discovered that these sites are not just culturally significant. They are part of a planetary defense mechanism, possibly dating back thousands of years, predating what we thought we knew about our own history." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over the crowd. Michelle added, "It appears that these sites were designed as more than just monuments. They might have been built with the knowledge of Earth's magnetic field and its potential to be harnessed against extraterrestrial threats." Dan resumed, "This brings us to a new era of understanding, not only about our planet, but also about ourselves. We must explore this knowledge further and prepare. If the Draconians came once, others might follow." Questions erupted from the floor, voices overlapping in the urgency to understand and plan the next steps. Dan raised his hands, calling for calm. "We'll open a new department to study these findings, and we'll need to strengthen our global defenses, using the technology we've now mastered." In the following weeks, Dan and his team, along with international experts, formed a new unified Earth Defense Coalition. Their first task was to excavate and study other historical sites around the world, looking for more clues about Earth's ancient protective technologies. Meanwhile, Yarek, who had been granted asylum due to his cooperation, worked closely with Earth's scientists, providing insights into alien technologies and strategies. His presence was controversial, but his knowledge was invaluable. He met regularly with Dan, discussing potential threats and the broader cosmic geopolitical landscape. "I never thought I'd see a Draconian helping humans," Dan remarked during one of their sessions. Yarrick looked out the window, his gaze distant. "Nor did I imagine I would ever respect humans as warriors and scientists. We were wrong about many things." As Earth continued to heal from the scars of battle, new revelations about its history rewrote textbooks and changed the perspective on human civilization's place in the cosmos. The battle had ended, but a new chapter of exploration and discovery was just beginning. The Coalition, under Dan's leadership, embarked on a mission to ensure Earth would never again be caught off guard. The network of ancient sites was expanded and enhanced, turning the planet into a formidable fortress not just against the Draconians, but against any future threats from the stars. The conference in Geneva concluded with a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity had defended its home not by mirroring the aggressors, but by embracing and amplifying the unique traits of their world. Earth, with all its mysteries and ancient wisdom, had proven itself a living, defending entity in the cosmic arena. The future held challenges, certainly, but also an unshakable confidence in the resilience and ingenuity of its people. In the aftermath of the Draconian defeat, the world was forever changed. Earth had not only survived an alien invasion, but had thrived by harnessing its own latent powers. As the global community began to rebuild, there was a palpable sense of a new era dawning, one of unity and advanced understanding of the planet's intrinsic capabilities. Dan stood at the forefront of this new era. Under his leadership, the newly established Earth Defense Coalition had grown into a formidable organization dedicated to both defense and scientific discovery. As he prepared for the grand opening of the Coalition's headquarters in Geneva, he reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. The headquarters was abuzz with activity, with scientists, military leaders, and diplomats from around the world converging to celebrate their collective victory and to plan for the future. The main hall was filled with displays of alien technology now repurposed to benefit Earth, as well as interactive holograms of the planet's ley lines and magnetic fields. As guests arrived, Dan greeted them with a mixture of pride and humility. Among them was Yarrick, now a respected advisor to the Coalition. Their unlikely friendship had become a symbol of possible peace between species, even those once at odds. During his opening speech, Dan addressed the assembly with a clear vision. "Today marks not just a celebration of victory, but the beginning of a new chapter in human history. We have discovered that Earth is not just our home, but our protector. We will continue to explore this relationship, ensuring that our planet can defend itself, and us, for generations to come." He introduced Jarek, who, despite some initial murmurings of dissent, was met with applause. Jarek spoke briefly but powerfully about his experiences. "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a witness to the resilience and ingenuity of Earth and its people. What we faced here, the unity and the power of this planet, should be a message to all civilizations that Earth is not to be underestimated." Following the speeches, the floor was opened for a panel discussion on the integration of alien technology into Earth's defenses. Alex and Michelle were key speakers, detailing the advancements in energy harnessing and environmental protection that had been made possible by studying the Draconian tech. The event also featured a series of workshops focused on planetary defense strategies and sustainable technologies, emphasizing Earth's role as a living, protective entity. The discussions were rich and forward-thinking, with many young scientists and strategists eager to contribute to Earth's future security. As the day drew to a close, Dan stood on a balcony overlooking the city lights, reflecting on the progress made. Earth was no longer just a player on the cosmic stage, but a fortress, equipped not only to defend itself, but also to foster a new level of technological and diplomatic prowess. Looking ahead, Dan knew challenges remained. The universe was vast, and the Draconian attack had proved that other threats could emerge. But Earth was ready, its people united like never before. The network of ancient sites, now fully activated and understood, formed a global shield, a testament to human creativity and the planet's enduring strength. In this new beginning, Dan saw not just security, but hope, a future where Earth and its inhabitants could explore the stars not as warriors, but as pioneers of peace and innovation. The legacy of their defense would be one of cooperation, curiosity, and respect for the diverse mysteries of the universe, with Earth as a respected member of the galactic community. As the stars twinkled above, mirroring the city lights below, Dan felt a deep connection to the planet that had protected them all. Earth, with all its power and mystery, was their home, their guardian, and now their greatest ally.